Okay, I think we are good to go. And I am going to talk into the Zoom. Welcome. Hi, guys. This is an impromptu YouTube live, and I'm coming you today. I called my beautiful friend Kyra about an hour ago, and I said, "Hey, do you want to have a cosmic conversation?" And as it goes in our friendship, that's kind of like code for let's get together and talk about all the cool things. And she was ready to roll. And then we thought, well, let's just go live and try this thing out because it's definitely something that I want to be doing more of. And I know that Kyra does also, because these are the types of conversations that really nurture the soul. They're the ones that invite us to kind of move out of our comfort zones and go deep into who and what we are, look at the ways that we're processing information. And I titled this conversation today with Kyra, Coming Out of the Fog, because I had an interesting conversation with another friend yesterday who I hadn't spoken to in a good 3 years. And she was someone in my life who was really encouraging me to take my business to the next level, and someone who I respected a lot. And through a series of movement, as some of you might know, I myself fell into some information online that I think all of us were. Let me back up. I think a blanket statement is that all of us during the whole 2020 situation were looking for information to help us make sense of what was happening. And I think because I was a leader in my community, I felt like this responsibility to have answers. And so I went down the rabbit hole and I went searching in all sorts of strange places. And I feel that the best part of all of that, and there were lots of sacrifices, there was a lot of loss, which we're going to talk about as we get going. But the best part of it was this friendship with Kyra, who, as you will come to hear her soon speak about all sorts of amazing things. She is so cosmic. She's a longtime herbalist. She's a metaphysician in the shamanic traditions. She's a spiritual coach. And she has supported me so much in staying grounded in the truth that I'm subscribed to, which is that only love is real. She's taught me tools and practices that have supported me in moving through, sincerely, some of the hardest things that have happened in my own life. And I feel so compelled to share her with you and to share the content that we're creating together and each of us on our own, because what we speak about often is how important our relationship is and how important it is to have someone who loves you unconditionally and someone who's like-minded and can call you out on your stuff in a way where you don't feel judged and insulted. And that's really the function and the purpose of the Miraculous Living Club, which we've started a few months ago. And we have a really sweet little group coming. Weekly, we meet on Fridays, and Kyra has been a visitor in our group. And the gals just had so much love and so many profound takeaways when she came into the group. She comes with a level of mastery that I think is unique in our reality. I think she has a very sincere way of articulating spiritual content that allows us to sit in our heart space and to be safe. And I think that's really what we're learning through all of this. I think that I got caught up in a lot of information. I did a lot of weird things. I said a lot of weird things. And I'm at this place now where I can look at all of it and look at it from the Course in Miracles content, which is really the foundation of my spiritual practice and the yoga practices of Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, and say that truly forgiveness is the key to happiness. Learning how to forgive yourself for being a work in progress, for making mistakes, for doing things that you thought were guided. And I've done this, so I feel like I can really speak on it. I felt like in so many ways I was guided in a certain direction. And I still believe that to be true because all events are neutral. And so I'm the one who's judging them as positive or negative. And so, yes, my human self is like, oh, wow, that was so negative. A, B, and C occurred. And maybe you can do this in your own life. You can go back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that differently because this happened. But spirit, from spirit's perspective, and where I feel Kyra has really mastered this practice, you can look at things and extract the jewel, the gem from kind of the mess of humaning. And one of the things Kyra and I work together on daily is really learning how to master this human experience. Like, what are we here for? And as we come out of the fog of the last few years, and are you on this side or that side? It really comes down to you, yourself, and I. Like, how do I feel about myself? Am I willing to forgive myself? Am I willing to see things differently? Am I willing to share some of my sadness, my betrayal, and to have somebody in your life that is willing to hold that space, and not in the context of like, hey, we're just going to sit together and complain about our lives. That's not what I'm speaking to. What I'm speaking to is like, this is what I'm working through, and can you hold some compassionate space and acknowledge my feelings, which Kyra is excellent at. So if you ever get an opportunity to have a coaching session with her, I highly recommend it. It will be life altering. But to hold that space from a compassionate place, and also to invite you to see your part in it, because that's really the only part that you can change. That's really the only part that you have any control over. And I'm just so grateful to have her here today. And that was a bit maybe more of an intro that I wanted to do, but we're just here really informally today to have a cosmic convo, to talk about some of the things, how to trust the process, how to really embrace this concept that all miracles are held in a trust. And so to circle back around before I hand over the mic to Kyra, when I had this conversation with this friend yesterday, it reminded me that even though I might have regretted certain things that I've said or done or promoted in the past, that as long as I'm willing to forgive myself for being a work in progress and for trying to do the best I could with what I had at that moment, that it invites others to also do the same. And the way that this friend showed up to me with me yesterday was really profound in that she saw it too. It was like we all went through this journey, and now we have this grand opportunity to really get in hand and move through the next however long we have on this planet to be who we were designed to be, which is the light of the world. I really believe this, that every one of us has a light within us that is so potent and powerful, unaltered by anything you say, anything you do, anything that happens to you, anything that happens in the future. There is a part of you that is pure light. And that's what we're looking to identify ourselves as, rather than, you hear the cat, the shadow that we're working through. So Kyra, I'm going to pass the mic over, and I thought maybe you might have somewhere you want to start, but this teaching that you shared with me last week about alignment was really powerful, and I've been thinking about it every day. This idea of being aligned to this light that I was just speaking to. And when you're not aligned, you cast a shadow. And then you look at the shadow and you identify as the shadow. And this journey that we're on, and the tools and the practices that we are utilizing within our own lives and sharing with others, the baseline of those practices is alignment to the divine. And having a spiritual practice is about accepting first that you are a spiritual sojourner. You are here on a journey you're moving through. We think sometimes we're here to change everything, but really we're here to lock in to the truth of who we are. So I'm going to mute myself because the cat is going a little bit wacky right now. And pass over the mic. Thank you, Kyra, for being here with me and doing this little cosmic combo on Tuesdays.
Yeah, Teachable Tuesdays. Thank you, Marie. I so appreciate you as a leader, as a visionary, as a master healer, that we only can heal ourselves and then shine that light as an example of one way that it's doable. And we each have to find our own path. But in finding our own path, we each become a way shower, saying it's possible to live a joyful life. And my feeling about how to live that joyful life and feel like that we can come out of the fog successfully is about realizing that, first off, defining ourselves as an immortal being that jumped into this realm, which has a lot of evidence to lead us to conclude that it's a simulation. And then while we're here, we find out we don't like a lot of things going on here. And then also discovering that we can opt out of those and live a life creating with our own oversoul inside of a beautiful light-filled reality tunnel that keeps opening us up more and more and more to express the truth of our being, which is, as the Course in Miracles says, that only love is real. And where does that love live? It lives within our own heart. And it seems like all forces are designed to keep us from that simple discovery that as soon as we open that portal, we have access to everything we need, which is the guidance that helps us navigate this realm. So it's not a constant struggle in that duality game of one step forward, one step back, always looping. And to clarify the idea that Marie and I talked about with the idea of alignment, I had this epiphany last week when we spoke of it, that early in the morning when the sun is low, it casts a long shadow taller than your body. Also, late in the evening when the sun is low, it will cast a shadow longer than your body. But at noonday, or if you happen to be in that place where the sun's directly overhead, there is no shadow. And so to me, this is the perfect example of why sometimes the shadow feels so big and so overwhelming, and we feel so overcome with the emotion of depression or disconnectedness or sadness, or feeling like you just, you try and nothing changes. But yet, the simple idea of just saying, well, wait a minute, those conditions are only expressing when I'm not directly in alignment with the truth of who I am, which is a multidimensional immortal being with access to whatever intelligence that I'm reaching out for. Ask and you shall receive. But to believe that I don't have access is the thing that is keeping me shut down and overwhelmed and living in the shadow worlds. And so coming out of the fog, we went through what I just want to truthfully say, from my opinion, was a global psyops in 2020. And it affected most of us like being hit with a tsunami. And we each reacted in our own way. And I have zero judgment for anyone's actions and what they chose to do during that very challenging cycle.
Yeah.
But still we rise, and we have these spiritual tools. And so, yeah, I fell down the rabbit hole too, Marie. And I found myself saying and even saying things online that I find ridiculous and not true at all from this perspective. But I will say that my positive takeaway from all of those events of the last 4 years is that it forced me to go deep within my heart as the only source now. And that's what I love about you. What I first saw in you is the beautiful purity within your own spirit that allows you to keep connected to your heart and bringing in the energy of the Divine Mother, the feminine Christ, the beauty that expresses through you. And that's what I also aspire to. And that's what I know that you do in your Miraculous Living Club. And that's what I do too in my work. So I'll pass the talking stick back to you.
Thank you. I just think that's so powerful because it's like a full circle, when we can move through events in our lives. And this was pretty extreme. I mean, everyone on the planet was affected in some way or another by all of the events that have occurred. So it was a massive kind of almost traumatic event. I want to say that because it was traumatic. It was like, we were questioning our all of the systems that we've been subscribed to. We were questioning the government. We were questioning the medical intentions. We were places, schools, the things that we were raised to trust. At least on my end, I really sincerely and deeply started to question the integrity of. And when we look at it from 30,000 feet, like I said earlier in our talk, spirit is using everything for our highest learning. So to come out of those experiences of the last few years and for you to hear you say it forced you to go deeper, I feel like it's like a blessing in disguise in a way that I was in my own life bypassing so much based on the teaching that only love was real. So it was like I kept moving. It was like all of this like love and fear. So we live in duality. And so there was like all of this love over here and all of this fear over here. And I just wanted the love to be true. And I still believe that only love is true and real because it's the only thing that is eternal. But the fear still existed. And I think what was happening is that I was trying from the level of consciousness that I had to kind of karate chop it out. Whereas the only way to actually diminish the fear, in my humble experience, and what I think we've done together so much and held the space for each other so much, is to move through it. It's not to avoid it or to tuck it somewhere or to set it down for another day. I mean, certainly there are times when you can't have a mental breakdown or you're here or there, but it was the willingness and actually this invitation, and I talked about this in my last Miraculous Mondays, to realize within yourself that you hold the sword of discrimination and that you are moving through and you're the one kind of determining what's true and false. You're the sorting, and the spiritual bypass can only take you so far. And I think that's why, in many ways, everything in my reality kind of collapsed on me. It felt like it was collapsing on me, and I felt deep sense of loss in the change of my business and the change of my family and the change of my physical health. I mean, so much was changing, but it's all for the good. It's like to know that as it's occurring is really empowering. And it's like essential. And I think that that's what the idea that we're sharing too here is, that community and friendship, spiritually high vibe friendship, someone who can really remind you when you're in the gunk that only love is real and that this is purification and you're going to be stronger on the other side of this, is such a blessing. And I really believe that's the ultimate blessing of this, was that I think a lot of people found people that they could really turn to in those times. And it's not to say that the friends that you have aren't good enough or whatever. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that spiritual content is so much more essential now, maybe, than it was before. And not only knowing it or reading about it, but the integration of it and the practicing of it. And maybe you can go into, I don't know if you want to share it, in the public platform, but, some of the practices that you've shared with me that have really supported me, in like Ho'oponopono, or really learning how to collapse this timeline. Like, we can spend a long time in suffering, or we can shorten that timeline. And how do we do that is really where we go deep in the clubs and in the privates and things like that. But we can kind of give a little teaser here into some of the ways in which you can work with yourself to move through the yuck, those feelings of fear and discomfort and anxiety.
Yes, I'd love to talk
Yes, I'd
about
love to talk about.
Ho'oponopono. And
You're a master at it, so
um, what
what
what I've been
what I've
able
been able.
oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo.
I will mute myself.
Maybe that is better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Well, as you know, Ho'oponopono is ancient Hawaiian huna, and huna is based upon the shamanic tradition of observing nature and seeing the patterns in nature, because I feel that the deception that makes us not trust is man-made, because man's still in duality, but nature will die out if it's not true. In other words, when it keeps reproducing and keeps replicating itself and casting out seeds and growing, all those patterns that we can see that are sustainable are about truth. And then we look into deeper and deeper into nature, and we can see divine patterns. And in the shamanic tradition, you learn how to read the patterns and even begin to communicate directly with nature, because you've opened up your heart to that frequency. It's just like changing a dial on a radio. And so these Huna masters were able to see that they could change energy back to a clear point called 0 point, where it has no charge on it, no negative charge, no positive charge. And for many of us that landed here in these bodies, we've been through a lot of trauma. We've been through trauma even in our families of origin, or in our relationships, or work environments, or physical suffering, or accidents. And our bodies took that impression like a recording device. It said our DNA itself is a recording device. And yet the idea that we have to drag that along our entire life, like chains that are depicted in the Dickens work, the Christmas story, where Marley's ghost was dragging behind all these chains and books and chests, and that's the energy that we drag behind us. And it can just be having to deal with emotions inside your family, having to deal with reactions and traumas and old resentments and things like that. And so we talk about, well, when you're in alignment, you're in the sun, you don't see any of that shadow. But how do you get there when you feel like crap because your heart's broken, because you're, beating yourself up over bad decisions you've made, because you don't have harmony in all your relationships? It's very hard to get back into your center and just feel like everything's groovy. And so there is where we use the tool Ho'oponopono, because Ho'oponopono will take that energy. And if you think like a quantum physicist, you can think that all energy is just code, and code is just ones and zeros, which you could break back down into electrical as positive and negative charges. And all of the events in our life have been coded and are stored in our cells, as our cells are masters of crystalline multidimensional energy that we can't see under the microscope. But we can clear that energy and create a field within ourselves that is neutral, and then it can be reprogrammed. And the basic steps of Ho'oponopono are just 4 sayings. And they're very simple. And there's wonderful books on this, and wonderful information online that you can research. And we go over it more deeply in our clubs. But the 4 expressions, you've probably heard of them, are: I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And when you say I'm sorry, how I interpret that is saying, oh, I've identified some bad code. It's an old trauma. It's a heartache. It's some resentment. It's even, my kidneys hurt. It's, I sprained my ankle. It's anything that's showing up that is not ideal. So you say to the universe, to your oversoul, to Heavenly Father, Mother God, I've identified that I've got some bad code. And the next phrase is, please forgive me. And in that place, you're saying, not that you did something wrong. It's just taking ownership that you were the owner or the one that the bad code expressed through. And you're saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm holding on to this bad code. Please erase it. Now, we as in these humans' bodies don't have the ability to erase it, but our oversoul, the aspect of ourselves in the realm beyond this simulation, of course it does. And as you trust, you create through the bridge of your imagination, which is the part of you that sits at the nexus between spirit and matter. That as you trust, that the second you ask, it is the Father's good pleasure to grant to us what we ask for as his beloved. And of course, the Divine Mother is the expression of that. So to then accept that you've been instantly removed of that bad code, that resentment, that hurt, that heartache, the pain, is to then say, okay, I'm going to accept it as true. And you do that by saying, thank you. Meaning, I've received it, that is now brought back to 0 point. There no longer is a negative charge. And unless you open up, go looking for that old wound or get triggered, it's gone. And then the last part of the phrase, I love you, is saying to the universe, okay, I'm back. I'm back. I'm living in my heart again. I'm not carrying that anymore. I'm in that place of no shadow because I'm directly in alignment. And that's the place we want to be because that's where our creativity is. We're creative beings and we're co-creators. And if you're an artist or a musician or a writer, or any part of your work is creative, even making food for your family can be an act of creation, an act of total love and service. You want to be in that state of creative mastery where your energies are multiplied by a seemingly supernatural forces. That's what artists and musicians, call the inspiration or the muse. And it's from your own state of alignment. And so the tool of getting out of the crappy state of depression or anxiety or worry or blame or self-doubt, all of those things is accessible to us when you just think of it as code. And most of the time, it's not even your stuff. It's just been projected upon you, or it's societal, or it's been programmed through watching movies and TV that everybody goes through this and you have to live in drama. You don't. You can live a totally drama-free life where your only drama is trying to sneak in as many hugs and kisses you can to your beloveds. So that's all I want to say right now about that. But coming out of the fog, when you come out of fog, you think, oh, the sun's shining again. And the sun is the sun of your own oversoul, your own God presence shining because now you're in receptivity because you're not holding on to the old stuff. So back to you, Mimi.
It's so powerful, because I think so many of us have grown up with this idea of reverence toward the divine, which is outside of us. And it's kind of been so healing to accept my part in it. It's like when you say, please forgive me, it's not like this admission of guilt and suffering. It's instead saying, I'm responsible for this part. Like, would you agree with that? Like, I'm taking accountability for the fact that I'm the one feeling these feelings now.
Right. You're running those programs.
Right.
Like if you watch the news and then you accept that what you saw on the TV was true, and then you tell another person, now you've entered into the collective and you're running those programs. So yeah, you have to take ownership of all the stuff that's coming through your personal organic field. And so obviously the message is run your own programs from your own sacred heart and your own cosmic purpose. And, I just want to say one thing about when you come out of the fog and you come into the light, the next step is, well, what's my purpose? It's obviously, I don't want to just be a little cog in the wheel of the matrix, that anyone listening to this is not, would not describe themselves that way. But what a lot of us come to, the next question is, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? I'm awake. I'm aware. I'm not buying any of the psyops and the BS anymore. And I would always answer two things. One, your purpose is to love yourself free. And by that, I mean every part of you that felt like it was in a chained situation through addiction or through habitual anxiety or even chronic states like insomnia or anything, you are choosing to first, as your purpose, go in, apply cosmic tools that Marie has in her club, and apply them to the place where you're unchaining yourself and you're freeing yourself. And you now feel like that energy that you reclaimed is now back and available and accessible to you as creative mojo that you can do things with. And then the second half, after you've loved yourself free, is to express the things that you love, whatever they are. If you want to love animals, if you want to love nature, if you want to love writing, if you express that to the fullest extent of your being as if it was a gift upon the altar of all that is, with as much finesse and beauty and excellence as you possibly can, that is your purpose.
Wow. You see why I call her cosmic? It's just that was so beautifully stated. It's so beautiful, and it really bridges together. If we look at Ho'oponopono and even passages from the Bible, that are kind of in our repertoire, like ask and you shall receive, or greater miracles than these, are yours, or, something like Jesus saying that we could do greater miracles than the ones than he did. It was like the idea is to really claim our part and our relationship to the divine as our most beloved, our most important relationship is that which we have not to this idea of someone outside ourselves, but to this aspect of me that is connected to that which created me. And that's really, in alignment with the course content that says that I didn't create myself, I was created, and that I am an idea in the mind of God. And I was, when you were speaking to really expressing, that creative mojo, like is it writing, is it cooking, is it art, whatever, is it great parenting, whatever it is that you desire to be great at is accessible to you. It's really just lining up to the fact that you deserve it and you're worthy of it. And it's given when you take up your part in it. It's like, I think that so many times people get stuck in, it's not happening for me. And it's like, well, what are you actually doing? Like you mentioned insomnia, what is the work that you're doing to calm yourself at night? Are you journaling? Are you writing down all of the thoughts that are keeping you awake and determining if they're true or false? Are you willing to let them go? Are you willing to see them differently? And Ho'oponopono is that it's like a cosmic eraser. That's literally what it feels like. And so when I, from a course perspective, talk about miracles being held in a trust, I think that, when you mentioned being, if I'm watching something on the news and then I share that, it's like the things that I might have said or done in the past or promoted different ideas in the past that I'm no longer subscribed to, like I need to clear that energy. And what I'm witnessing is that the more that I clear and I ask for forgiveness and I apologize sincerely for it without guilting myself, because that's really like the programming and the coding that I was brought up with, was there was just a lot of guilt in there and a dose of blame and like all of that yuckiness. But if I can just clear that slate, if I move through Ho'oponopono, it erases those chains, like you said. And if anyone saw Spirited, it's a Christmas movie, it's so hilarious, but they do such a great job with that character of like holding the chains and like this idea of like karma, of what goes around comes around. But when we're willing to release that and give it back to the divine for transmutation, it turns into this beautiful gem. And life experiences like that, like we can look at all of the traumas and all of the things, and we can actually land in a space of gratitude. And that's why I love Ho'oponopono, because it actually, you say thank you, like thank you. And gratitude is one of the highest vibrations we can be in, is it not?
Yes, Dr. Emoto proved that with this experiments with water, that the highest formations when the frozen water was blessed with an emotion and then frozen into little snowflakes and looked at under the microscope, that love and gratitude were the ones that not only were they the most beautiful, but they were consistent in their shape. Now, of course,
Mm.
no two snowflakes are alike, but it's like he tapped into a frequency that is sustainable. And so I think of that as a wave that you can jump on and ride. And so, Abraham Hicks, I loved some of their work. They talk about a rampage of gratitude. And if you ever want to get yourself out of a funk, what they suggest is you just look around, open your eyes and look around at everything you have in your immediate surroundings and start saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Oh, I'm grateful for my laptop, grateful for my headphones, I'm grateful for my couch, I'm grateful for everything that you see. And just keep going deeper, deeper and deeper, expressing all the things that you're grateful for. And you will spiral yourself up. You will like think of yourself as in a vibrational elevator. And if you were down in the basement and you were hearing lots of cacophony in your own internal, dialogue, and you want to get yourself back into peace, just do a rampage of gratitude. And it's like you get rocketed up in that express elevator up to the penthouse, because now you're at a frequency that is in alignment with the resonance of who you really are, which is, this is a test question, you are an immortal being having an experience as part of your spiritual polishing.
Mm.
And from probably all the people that would be listening to this, most of us have already made the affirmation, I ain't coming back here. I'm done. There's a lot of BS going on here that is not part of my lesson cycle. I've figured it out. I'm moving on to the whatever the next evolutionary phase is for me. And so by thinking that way of yourself and nurturing yourself as an immortal being, finishing up as a graduate work, whatever experiences there are, there's no time to waste in doing anything other than pursuing the frequency of love. Because
Mm.
that's your A ticket, or E ticket, I should say. That's your express train. And that's why I know Marie loves so much the Course in Miracles, because the whole teaching is based on the return to love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so powerful. It just really is. And I think that, you know, we talk about the training of the mind a lot. And I think when you really take responsibility for your reality, if you're seeing something that you don't like, it really is changeable based on your willingness to change your mind about things. And using that cosmic eraser and pulling out tools and reading about what does tolerance mean, having a lesson, a mantra every day to practice with. I mean, I love the Course in Miracles so much because, for the last 20 years, it has taught me to reverse the way in which I was thinking. And the yogis call it the way in which the mind turns. If we don't learn how to change the way the mind turns, we identify as the mind stuff. We think we are the things that we think. And so the Course in Miracles, a practice of yoga are the tools, that I use as my foundation. But I mean, Kyra just offered us Ho'oponopono, and there are so many. She has got, I mean, just so much stuff going on that even just looking at different dietary things, adding herbs, adding supplements, um, times to be in meditation, the rampage of gratitude, so many ways that we can stop the way that our mind is turning and come out of that kind of foggy feeling of like, where am I, who am I, and what's happening here, and learning how to really, be grateful for the experience of being here, but also look to say, look, I want to learn as much as I can and go back to where I came from, which is from love. And I think the more that we can learn how to embrace that here and now, the easier time we have as we transition into the next phases of our lives, and the easier it is to move through hard things in life, because the Buddha said life is suffering, that we that's what he saw, when he left the temple. But the idea is that we can opt out. And I think what's happening now is that we're learning really how to do that and how to maintain it, and then how to share it with others, because we're so grateful to have those grand windows of time where there is space from shadow, where there is space from suffering, and we can really reside in our true nature, which is happiness and freedom, and that being your divine right. That's the yogic prayer, may all beings everywhere be happy and free. And it's also in the Course of Miracles that God's will for you is perfect happiness. And that's very different, I think, than the way that we've been raised and trained. And then as adults, we get to determine what works for us, you know? And I think that these are the things that have worked for you and me, Kyra, and that will continue to, and that we'll just keep going on to share. How long have we been going? Let's see. I think we're kind of coming to the end here. We were going to set a timer and have a time, and we'll do that better next time. We're just kind of getting back into this. We have no idea how long we've been on.
I forgot to set the timer.
I think we've probably been on for maybe 45 minutes. I don't know. But is there anything else that you want to share before we complete for today? I just want to thank you for being here, and it felt really good to just kind of go for it.
Well, I would say that what you just said was that I want to add to is the idea of having what you love to call in your community mighty companions. The more friends that you have that you could speak in this state where you don't have to edit yourself, and that they have learned not to waste your time by coming to you and complaining, because what we put our attention on grows. And so that's kind of the measure of how I keep my friendships, is that we burn our own wood, meaning we don't bring all of our problems into our friendship. We take care of as much as we can with our own spiritual tools. And then we bring to each other the big epiphany, the distillation, the little drop of wisdom, the takeaway that says, oh my God, I realize now that all that BS I went through with this person was to teach me XYZ.
Right.
And those types of friendships keep us spiraling up, and they don't drain us. So what I've learned is, if you feel after if you want to use this little technique as a way to measure friendships, if after you are with them, you feel energetically drained, you feel very sleepy, like you need a nap, or if you feel voraciously, unnaturally hungry, it meant that the energy wasn't balanced, that you had more water in your cup than they did, and now you're back to the common denominator of level. And so having others that you can speak of in terms of a spiritual growth and sharing tools, and of course none of us is perfect, we're all going to go through days that we just feel like crap and bad things happen, whatever, but to be able to quickly come back to center and say, wow, that was weird, but I'm back, instead of spending weeks or months there. This is the idea behind, miraculous living and having friends and mighty companions. And yes, we do need those folks in our life, because we want to play with them. We want to party with them. We want to hang out with those people and, express the joy of just being here together and all of the beauty of the nature kingdom.
Totally. Totally. And, I want to just, because we did mention some of the rabbit hole stuff, this idea that, a lot of families had issues, like it was just such a divisive time, and friendships seemed to have ended. And, there was so much that occurred. And I just want to invite all of us to consider that this idea that miracles are held in a trust, that love is eternal and it changes form, but the love is always there. And I certainly feel that way around some of the relationships that became strained in the last few years in my own life. And I encourage, those that I have the privilege of coaching or mentoring or whatever, sharing content with, to remember that it's all for the highest. And, you taught me that too, Kyra. What was that line? I bless and I bless and I bless. You take it. this entire situation, and I can hardly wait to see what happens next. I mean, I went through some really, really intense times, Kyra, and you were literally like the angel in this picture that you have here, like reaching your hand out, like I bless this. There is good that's going to come from this. Like, it's like there's a diamond in here somewhere. Um, but that's what I want to just leave us with today as you come out of the fog, that people do come around. If it's meant to be, they will, and that you can still love even though the form changes, and we can learn how to allow ourselves to move through this life without really putting so much pressure on this idea of perfection based on this, these mental structures that we have in our mind about how it's supposed to be. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's supposed to be exactly how it is right now. And we can learn how to be grateful for it and work towards whatever it is we're trying to work towards. Take the action, have an imagination, be creative, and give it to spirit for the highest. What is that phrase, Kyra? I bless and I bless and I bless this entire situation.
And I can hardly wait to see what good will come from it.
I can hardly wait to see what good will come from it. I said that to someone recently, and it was just like such a pow. Like, wow. Because when sometimes we find ourselves in hard things, it's just like all encompassing. But if you blessed it and knew it was in the highest for you and everybody else involved, and that's what you intended, that's what you wanted, then that's what will occur. We are that powerful. And it happens in life. Like I get feedback from that all the time in my daily life, and I know you do too, Kyra. We share miracles all the time. Like, wow, look what just happened, and that's what's fun about these types of cosmic relationships as well, and having groups and content to share where we can actually take it from and into wow.
Yeah. Well, I want to just say one last thing. I keep getting the visual. It's the story of a well, and the farmer's donkey had fallen down the well, and they tried all types of things and ropes, and they couldn't get that donkey out. And so sadly, they decided they were just going to have to abandon that well. It would be tainted with the body of the donkey, and just all they could do is to just bury it and just, hopefully the poor creature just suffocated and it wasn't too bad for it. So that he had a few of his helpers stand around, and they just got shovels and they started, throwing shovelfuls of dirt on the donkey. And, the folks weren't paying too much attention. They were all kind of sad. They weren't really observing. But pretty soon, when they looked over, they realized that every shovelful of dirt that had fallen, the donkey had shaken it off his back and stepped on it, and kept shaking it off his back and stepping on it. And before you know it, his level was higher and higher until he just walked out. And so that's the great example, is to shake it off, friends. Just shake it off and make the stuff that feels harsh, the stuff under your feet that just keeps you rising.
I love that.
So be a donkey.
Be a donkey.
Step up.
I love that. The last talk I did, I talked about being a goldfish from Ted Lasso. The goldfish has a 10-second memory. So I love that. Oh, wow. Well, so we have a few people that came and have been in the chat. Sue Marie May says, hi, Marie. I'm thrilled to see you live. Thank you so much. Hi, Susan. Hi, Brooke. Thank you so much, gals, for being here. It's been fun. We're going to just try and do this more and more and share the love. That's what this is about. And these are the types of conversations Kyra and I have been having pretty much every day for years. So why not share with a community that's growing? And I think that so many people right now are really, really starting to like, okay, we're coming out of this fog. It's time. So I think that's our show for today. Is there anything else? I think there was a lot of good stuff in here. We want to invite you to reach out. I put my email in the information here. If you have questions about the Miraculous Living Club, we can get on a call for 20 minutes or so and see if it's a good fit for you. It really is specific, so we want to make sure that it's a win-win. And what else can I say? Lots of good stuff coming. I can just feel it. I really do. I'm grateful. 2024 is going to be a great year. Last words, Kyra?
Just sending out this idea to everyone that every day you just focus on loving yourself free. And all the love that spirit has for you is yours. And let it come through you like a giant waterfall, blast open your heart, fill your field with this beautiful, loving energy, and just love yourself the way God loves you.
So beautiful. Wow. So beautiful. I second that. All right, friends, have a great rest of the day. We will be back next week. We'll let you know, probably Monday or Tuesday. And just so grateful to be back in this space again. It feels really good. Thank you for your patience with me as I moved through my own stuff these last few years. It's been really interesting.
Can we end with some yes buttons?
Yes buttons?
Yeah, some yes. So
Oh, yes.
I'm just gonna say that I have this little button that it just says yes in different voices, and I love to press it when I ask a question that I want a yes answer to. So the question I'm asking is, have we all pulled ourselves out of the fog and now living in the light of alignment and loving ourselves free?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Okay, bye
Boom.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week. We're